I will admit, I'm a little bit nervous, but not for the reasons you think. I've seen so many people hurt in the church, both from toxic people and toxic people getting hurt. And today, I hope to shed some light on what a true toxic person is, how they have affected your life, infiltrated your state of mind, but also to teach you and impart to you the ability to have grace for those who are toxic and are willing to change. You know, not every toxic person that you see is beyond repair. You know, when I was studying on toxic people, both in the world's definition and in the church's definition, there is so much hatred towards the toxic person. There is so much of people just telling them how to tear them out and how you need to separate yourself. There's so much that to the point where you become toxic. And it was quite devastating, actually. And looking at it, it's devastating to see those who do have toxic traits being shunned, outcast, and hurt for something that we as the body of Christ have the solution for. And as we begin on this first lesson of Beat the Biohazard, how to work with toxic people, I hope to show you not just the world's perspective, my perspective, but God's perspective on who and what a toxic person is. Guys, I want you to realize something. That as a believer in the body of Christ, you are the cure for the disease that is out in the world and church. You are the cure for every contamination that we see. Why? Because the cure lives inside of you. Christ, Him born again, living in you, is the reason we are the cure to the body of Christ. You know, when I do the study on toxic people, or even not just toxic people, but mental illnesses, any kind of character trait or contamination, they often will give a patch-over solution to the problems that people face. They'll often give you these little bits that will kind of tide over and band-aid and kind of minimize the damage of the person, but no one really has a true solution except one nation, one tribe, and that is Christians and Christ born again. We're the only ones that truly know and have a solution and have evidence to the true transformation of a soul being saved and born again. When we cover the topic of toxic people and we look at all of the mental illnesses that we see in the church, I want you to know already from the bat that you are the solution because Christ lives in you and you have it to bring to the church. We're not going to combat toxicity. We're going to cure it. And in this course, I hope to give you the tools and skills to helpfully take someone through who is toxic and to help take them through to transformation, to being born again in the true image and in the true nature that Christ has given us. Because what is toxic? Toxic is the contamination that we've seen of the natural image that God has given us. God ordained for us to be pure, to be set apart into Him. But through struggles in life, we've seen toxins begin to form and begin to build in us. And thankfully, there is a cure. Now, what is a toxic person? How do you begin to identify them? Because I've seen and I know a lot of people have ideas of who and what a toxic person is, right? Oh, it's Auntie Sue who really gets under my skin. Oh, I'm a toxic person for eating that last cupcake. We have many ideas, but a true toxic person is somebody who is not only harmful to themselves, but harmful to others. You see, I have a story that I want to share with you about an encounter I had with a toxic person. Now, when I was younger, we went and we met up with these group of kids, and there was two girls that we were playing with, and she challenged us to play American football. Now, being South African, growing up in Mexico, I don't really know much about the game. So you can imagine I got my butt handed to me many times, especially by this girl who was more experienced. She knew how to tackle. She knew all the moves. And eventually, I got tired of being tackled. So, me being me, I always studied the people. And when she came to tackle me, I always saw that she always tackled me in the same way. So I thought, not today. So I did this little footwork and managed to spin myself loose of her tackle as she went flying past me. And I could run and pass the ball over. And to me, I'm like, I was such a good victory. I'm like, for being a noob, I was proud of myself. So the next round comes, and I don't know what happened, if she manifested, but she started going ballistic. She tackled me again, but then after she tackled me down to the ground, she started punching me. She started pulling my hair. She was being really malicious about it. And what was crazy is even though she was hitting me, I didn't feel a single one of the blows. I didn't feel her pulling my hair or ripping at my hair. I didn't feel anything. And I remember saying to her, hey, the game is over. And eventually one of her friends had to come and pull her off. And I was just kind of confused. And everybody else was confused. And they confronted her saying, why did you do that? Why were you doing that? And she had no recollection of what she did. She's like, what? I just tackled her. That was it. She didn't actually fully recognize or remember that of her actually beating me. And later on, I brushed it off and like, okay, that was weird. And so later on, we got talking with her. It turns out that she came from a very broken home. It turns out that she was having a crisis of who and what she wants to believe, that she was even dabbling in some things that were even leaning towards the demonic, but she was just so broken and hurt and had no identity that she herself was so broken. Now, it's very quick to see and spot that, yeah, she was toxic, but a toxic person is somebody that often will actually have a demonic bondage. It's often somebody who blame others for the wrong in their life. It's somebody who is also, they're blind to the truth. When we look at a toxic person, most toxic people don't actually know that they're being toxic. They actually don't recognize it because a lot of the times, a toxic person has not been trained and just don't know. They are spiritually, they are as well as emotionally inept. They just cannot see, they cannot make the connection between themselves and the hurt they inflict on others. They are unaware of other people, their emotions and feelings, and therefore they react according to their own sense and feelings. They become, if they are aggressive, it's because they're only focusing on themselves. They are not actually seeing anyone else around them because they can't make a personal connection or a emotional connection with somebody else. They are blind. You often will look at them and say, what is wrong with you? You're just not normal. You come across those people and you're like, okay, do you have like a disability or something? Because you don't seem to be able to connect the dots. You just have this disconnect between life and your reality. Yeah, that's somebody who is toxic and who is unable to connect with the real world. Why? Because they live in a world of their own understanding and making. Now, it's so quick to judge that person, right? Especially because a lot of people are described as somebody who is unpleasant and more often malicious to other people. Somebody that inflicts harm upon others. It's so easy for us to get upset and judge them, just like that lady. But guys, there is the cure. There is the hope. And even though we are surrounded by such toxic people, we don't have to be affected by them. Just like when I was being confronted by that toxic girl, the Lord protected me through it. Things that should have hurt me didn't hurt me. Things that, when she was pulling and tugging, by all logic and sense, it should have hurt. But I came back unscathed. Just a little bit of frizzy hair, but that's nothing a hairbrush can't handle. And it's like, but we see all these toxic people and we're like, we have to confront them. We gotta fight back, right? You slap me, I gotta slap back. We gotta call it even. But guys, take a step back here for a minute. And let's ask us the question of, why are they toxic? People don't become toxic for no apparent reason. There is always a source. And yes, sin is always the obvious and the main catalyst to toxicity. But what about it? What causes them to be toxic? Now, before I go into that, I want to show you a biblical example of a toxic person, because we can recognize it in modern day sense. We can recognize it around people around us, people that we don't like, people that bully us. We can see that. But let's also look at a biblical perspective of a toxic person. Because if you look up the word toxic person, you ain't going to find it in the Bible. That's a modern terminology and a modern term that we've developed. So I'm going to go to Matthew 23, verses 2 to 4. Saying the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do it. But do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on man's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them, and will not move one of their fingers. The Pharisees and the scribes especially are a good example of toxic people. So if you want to go and do more of a biblical research and study on toxic people, I do highly recommend looking at the Pharisees as an example. Other places you can find it is by looking up in Proverbs, scoffer, fool, so on and so forth. So if you want to do some extra study, you're more than welcome to do that. But I will cover this more in depth and the definition and the progression of fools in this course. So you don't have to do all the hard work. I'm doing it for you. But let's look at two different types of toxic people. You see, there are the passive, and then there are the aggressive types of toxic people. Now, you see, this is where a lot of confusion comes in, because everybody lumps them under one type of toxic person. But if you look at the passive toxic person, they are people that always challenge you and make you question your belief. They make you question things and convictions that you've said. So like you'll find, especially in a secular environment, there are people who are always challenging and condescending and correcting your faith. There are people who are like, why do you do that? Well, why do you believe this? Well, I don't believe that. I don't know if that's right. Are you sure you should be doing that? There are people that are consistently, and they even make it sound all meek and innocent, but if you especially sense the underlying spirit, you can sense that contrite spirit. You can sense those lies sneaking in and trying to steal away your identity. But if you take a moment to stop, you'll realize that they are trying to knock a piece of you and remove it because it makes them uncomfortable or makes them feel insecure. So they will challenge something that they don't like in you to try and get you to change. Be very careful of the passive. I would dare say this, that the passive toxic person is a little bit more sneaky and more dangerous than the aggressive. Why? Because you only spot the passive after they are fully manifested. It's hard to pick up a passive toxic person, but if you are spiritually discerned, it's easier for you to do. Another way to identify a passive toxic person is that they always play and always seem to be the victim. It's always about, well, this happened to me. I got hurt. This is what happened. Feel sorry for me. This is what I went through. This was terrible. This shouldn't have happened. And sometimes, especially what's challenging as a ministry and in a ministry environment, is that we're here to heal the brokenhearted. But the thing is, a victim mentality or a passive toxic person will display the hurt not to get healing, but to smoke screen and to make you feel sorry for them, to manipulate you, to get your sympathy and compassion when actually they don't want to deal with the hurt. And this can be very challenging when you are ministers and when you are really genuinely trying to help. You're like, okay, you got abused, you got molested, this is really bad. You need healing. Yes, but you have to be careful because depending on the person, the passive will not want that healing. But another thing is that they hide behind their hurt, they hide behind experiences, and they use it as a protection. You can't get angry at me because I'm hurt. As a woman, I might be telling on it. When I'm ministering to somebody, especially another woman, and they start crying hysterically, and I know that they're smoke screening me, it does bug me quite often because as a woman, you know when another woman is being vulnerable. You know when someone is opening up their heart and letting down their walls. But don't use your tears to manipulate me, to make me feel sorry for you. That's just me. And I'm sure a lot of other women in ministry are like, I know what you're doing. I know you're trying to manipulate me with those tears. Suck it up, buttercup. You're not made of porcelain. God made you the same as me, and you have a will of steel. So let's cut the nonsense, shall we? But it happens more often than you would think. Not just in the case of crocodile tears, but they will be vulnerable with you and share their secrets and share what they're really feeling, what really is hurting them, to make you feel sorry for them so that you won't be mad and correct them, so that you won't discipline them according to righteousness. And if you're not careful and spiritually discerned, they could get you, because then they will put up that hurt and you will go soft and you will then leave whatever it is you're addressing and deter to something else and try and heal them of their hurt instead of focusing on the sin and the point that God is bringing up in them. Because you know that in order for them to get help, in order for them to get healing, you have to address the sin. But this hurts and this happened to me, and you see, this is how it always is, that whenever I'm vulnerable and hurt, everybody just rejects me and they just hate me, and no one really loves and cares about me. Yeah, you're born again, so I call bull. Yeah, you know love because you know the Father. So don't you lie to me. You do know love. Don't smoke screen me with that, because you know that I'm addressing your sin right now, and I'm not doing it the way you want me to, but I'm doing it the way God told me to. You see, we don't have to be mean about it. We don't have to be jerks, but we do have to be discerning and be careful that we are not being played by their smoke screen and by their fake emotions, that we are distracted from the truth and the sin that needs to be addressed. Now, I'm going to say this. Do get angry at sin. Do not get angry at the person. Even when that hurt is exposed, sometimes you can get quite a righteous anger. But I will say this. Don't get so focused on your anger that you don't take a moment to first recognize and step back to see the true hurt. But I'll get to that in a minute. I'm jumping the gun a little bit here. A passive, toxic person is also somebody who's very needy. They're always wanting your time. They're wanting your attention. They're the kind of people that will have you teach them the same thing 10 times and still not remember what it is you taught them, because they want your continual attention. Oh, when you take time to teach me, I feel good about myself. I like having that attention from you. So I'm going to continue to remain ignorant and in need of your help to take your attention. And this can get very distracting, and it'll take a couple of times for you to realize it, especially in that case and scenario. But they're people that always have issues that come up that only you can help with. That whenever something's wrong, they need your help to deal with it. That they need to talk with you personally, and they need your attention in this matter. And they pull away from other places where you might be invested. Look, Pastor, I know that you're preparing and that you have this big sermon coming up, but I really need some ministry right now. This is happening in my life. My marriage is falling apart, and I really need you here right now. Again, it's genuine needs, and that's what can make it a little tricky, is that people, they will come with you with genuine needs, but you need to be discerning in, are they throwing their needs and making you the solution and making you their God, or are they using that to just draw your attention? Because there are times as pastors where we'll be focused in one area and God will say, no, stop, I need you to minister to this person. There's something coming up. That's something different. But if they are continuously and consistently nagging for your attention in different areas, be cautious. They're a passive, toxic person who are stealing your emotional and spiritual energy. The second one, and the most loud and obvious, is the aggressive toxic person. They are very loud. A good way to identify them is they pick fights very easily. They're very quarrelsome. They will often provoke people to wrath. They will challenge people, and they will call people out. So they're pretty easy to spot, and I think a majority of the toxic people we do see is those kinds, is the aggressive kind. Those everybody can spot from a mile away because drama follows them from a mile, and wherever they go, they're very demanding of you. They're very bossy. Yeah, is it reminding you of a few people? I'm sure as I'm saying this, very specific faces are being popped to mind. Yeah, they're very openly judgy. An aggressive toxic person will outright judge you or others around you. Well, they are so silly for doing it this way. Don't they know that this is better? Don't you know, you're being silly. You're being stupid right now. Because don't you know that this is the way that you're supposed to do it? Well, if they only did it the way I told them to, then it would be all right. Very loud. Very loud. I'm like, you don't even need spiritual discernment to sense the spirit on that. You can see that just by its fruit alone. But don't be fooled by all of that aggression and all that loudness, because even though they're very aggressive in nature, even though they pick fights, they do it to cover the true source of their toxicity, the very core, the nucleus of what started that toxic DNA in them. And that is from hurt. Every bit of toxicity that is started and rooted in a person starts from a hurt of the past, an abuse or trauma, either an emotional hurt or rejection. You see, it's easy to take a look and to judge and be like, okay, I need to cut them out of my life. Okay, they're just bad news. They're stopped. But take a moment to stop here for a minute. Take a moment to separate all your frustrations, all your feelings away from the person that is being toxic in your life, and look a little bit deeper and ask yourself, okay, why are they toxic? What's the cause of this? Because if you go ahead and scratch underneath the surface there, what you're really going to find is you're going to find a hurt and vulnerable person that has used the experiences that they have been allotted in life to protect themselves. And it turns out that that protection and that shield that they have is been heavily dipped in poison and is a barrier infecting others around them. And in turn, actually, they are hurting themselves. You see, a toxic person is not only toxic to the people around them, but they also become toxic to themselves. When they are steeped so much in their hurt and in their experiences, they begin to eat away at the true nature that God put inside of them. You see, it's not just about what they're doing around them, but can we also take a look at the toxic person? Can we also take a look and realize that all those things that I mentioned are actually a cry for help? We can get so offended and so fed up and react so much in bitterness at what has been done against us, about how we've been wronged. And yes, I'm not going to lie, it's unfair. There's a lot of injustice out there, but you're a minister of the gospel of truth. You are the cure to the world. Can you take a moment to stop and realize that you have the antidote? And no, it's not fair. No, it's not something you want to do. And no, it's not easy. But when you take a moment to realize that the person that you are the most frustrated and fed up with is the most broken person you will ever experience and work with, it changes your perspective a little bit. When you get past your hurt and your offense and realize that this person has come from an environment where they even were probably grown up under a narcissistic parent. A lot of toxic people, when I did research, are products of narcissistic parents. They have that identity bred in them from children. And it's not much that they can do about it because it was their lot in life. It doesn't give them the excuse, and it doesn't excuse their sin and their reaction. But can you realize for a minute here that the toxic person who's victimizing you is actually the victim themselves? Yes, you're so busy, quick to see, okay, they're victimizing people, but they are the victim too. They have fallen victim to sin. They have fallen victim to condemnation. They have fallen victim to the lies and the traps of the enemy that he laid out for them and they fell into. Yes, a toxic person is a victim too. Can you get over? Can we just get over ourselves for a minute here? Can we get over the fact and stop being the victim so much that we can realize that we're the cure? Because while you keep seeing yourself, and I feel this as a correction from the Father, so do understand I'm not angry at you, but God needs to say this. You're so busy focused on how you are being victimized that you have made yourself a victim, but you are not a victim. You are not a victim to the people around you. You are not a victim to your circumstances. You are the cure. You are the reason that this world will see a better day. You are the reason why God will come and his DNA will be on this earth. You are the reason that change and revolution is coming. Drop the act. You're no victim. Drop it. Drop the mentality. Let it go. Because once you let it go, that toxic environment that you're in, that toxicity that is on your mind, that is influencing your thoughts, will be removed, and you will find out that the cure was inside you long ago. That you were born with the cure inside of you. When you were called from your mother's womb, the seed of the cure was planted inside of you, and it has grown through every tribulation that you've experienced. Every hardship that you experience is not another reason you're bound, but another reason why you will cure somebody. You have been bred and conditioned by God the Father to be the pure and cure to his people. It all starts with you seeing them and not what they are doing and what they are feeling. When you break past all their expression and you break past everything inside of you, you will see a person that has no identity, who doesn't know who they are. So they grasp at the only identity they have, the only one presented to them by the people around them, by their parents. And they then become toxic and become narcissistic as well. Because why? It's all they had. Because they had no identity. Nobody told them who they are. Their parents, bad parents, who don't affirm them, who don't give them an identity, don't tell them their strengths, will then corrupt them to the point where they will seek out into the world to look for that identity. There are also people that have no security. They have no faith in themselves. They look at themselves and all they see is worthless. They have low self-esteem. And because of that, they try and do everything they can to cover it up and meet that need inside of them. So they become aggressive and they become loud and boastful to try and cover up the fact that they are lost and they don't feel worthy, that they feel messed up inside. But I can't show that to anybody. I have to cover it over. So let me go and try and prove to everybody why I'm right so that they won't see the fact that I feel useless and insecure and that nobody loves me. But I'll be aggressive and cover it all up. See past the smoke screens. See past the anger. See past all of that loud aggression that's in your face. See past those tears that are covering over and look to the true hurt. Look to the true part where God is bringing it up, where God is bringing up those hurts, because when you begin to focus in on that, something miraculous happens in you. You get compassion. You see, before you can even start to address a toxic person, you need to first have the simple body ministry of compassion, because that compassion will give you eyes to see them, to see their true hurt. Because when you're looking through all your bitterness and offense, all you're going to see is bitterness and offense. But the secret comes when you see them as Christ sees them. Now, I've gone ahead and I have mapped out 5 different levels of a toxic person. A toxic person is not just a toxic person. There are many different layers and levels to them. So I hope, even as I've been speaking today, that you don't lump them all in one giant pot, but that you can begin to see that a toxic person is not so black and white as you think. It's not as easy and as, well, that's just how it is. Sin is sin. No, a toxic person has many different levels, and there are many different ways to work with them. But I will work with you throughout this course and show you how to break down all the different toxins in a person and begin to break them down to a point and work towards that cure. That's why we need an entire course to cover this topic, and we're not going to deal with it all in one message. But as I go through these levels, I hope that you've begun to see an overview of a toxic person, the effects they have, and how they became toxic. But as we go through this course, I'm going to show you a bit more about what the different toxins look like, how they affect different areas of your life, and the different ways that you need to address them. So keep your eyes open, and I will cover the different levels more in depth on how they formed, how they got there, and how to cure them later on in the course. But just to give you a quick overview of the 5 different levels of a toxic person. The very first level, level 1, which is, I would dare say, ground zero, the absolute base or worst case scenario, is the one who doesn't want to change and doesn't think they need help. Now, as I describe these people, don't just lump them on their worst day, but use some spiritual discernment and look at them overall. Just because somebody's manifesting, they're lashing out and hurt and says, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need help. You need it. Just because they're having a bad day doesn't make them the worst case scenario toxic person, okay? What I'm talking about is a toxic lifestyle, okay? It's not just one encounter, but you see this as a repeating pattern in every area of their life. That they're like this in their ministry, they're like this at work, they're like this in their personal lives with their families. In every area, this is what they think and believe. So use a little bit of spiritual discernment. Just look at an overall metric and not just, well, they weren't nice and they said it and were mean to me. No, don't look at that. Look at the pattern. Step back. Again, take your emotions for a minute. Step back, disassociate yourself, and look at them. Look at them as a person. Look at their life overall, and spend a little bit more time studying them and not your feelings, okay? It just has to be said. You're all counselors, you're all high-level leaders, and those who've worked with people, so you understand what I'm saying. And I hope you do, because we're not here to just talk about how to deal with sin. We're going deep here, people. This is some high-level training, so I hope that you're with me with this and that you can take the backhanded compliments and the front-handed compliments all in one go, okay? So, there's somebody who do not want to change, that do not see themselves as needing any help, but they always see everybody else around them as the problem. Now, more often than not, these kind of people, level 1, are older people, people who've been set in their ways a lot more, or even those who have faced such hurtful experiences that they have based their entire life on it. So they're people that this is the worst case. These are people that often will be described in the Bible as having insolent pride. if you want to do more of a study. But again, I'll cover this topic later on. But they don't want to change. They don't want to look at anything. And they're often trying to prove to everyone around them why they are right and everyone else is wrong. And again, this is in every area of their life and not just one encounter in one perspective. Level 2, also known in the word as the scoffer. They are people who want help, but they want to put little effort in to change and get help. So they will have big desire for change. They'll want the help, but they don't really want to put in much effort. They kind of just want, just a quick magic pray over me and make my problem go away. Oh, I will read my Bible and that should cure me of all of my problems. That's level 2. They want instant results and have big desires to get those results, but they won't put in the extra effort to go through and follow. Like, you will give them solutions, you will give them plans and steps, and they'll say, yes, that's great, I'm going to do it. They will do it a little bit and then give up completely because they didn't see immediate results. Be patient. There's hope for them, and I will get there. I'll tell you how to coach through. I'll tell you, I feel in the spirit. You're like, okay, so how am I going to help them? Don't worry, we're going to get there. But first, you just need to identify and realize where they're at in their maturity and in their progression of toxicity, okay? Number 3, also identified as the fool. They hunger for change and will put in a good amount of effort. So they really are hungry. They're wanting that help, but they won't follow it through all the way. You can take them up until a certain point, and then they're just done, and they won't make the full conversion. They will get so close to making that switch over, but they just can't seem to make that next step to transition out of their environment, to transition out of their mindset. They are still deep down stuck in their ways. And you can often get frustrated because you're like, you see the potential and you see them like right there. It's like, if you just did that, if you just did this, you would be free. But they just won't make that transition. They won't make that final step to fully convert over and to change. Now, it can be kind of devastating when you get to that point, but when you realize you can only take someone as far as they can go, it'll get a little bit easier. But realize, as I'll teach you later on, as you work with them in each of their levels, it'll get a little bit easier on you and on them. Now, the final, level 5, which I would dare say is the easiest to work with, is the naive. Oh, wait, I skipped one. I'm sorry, I skipped level 4. My bad. The foolish. See, I'm already ready to jump to the end. I'm like, okay, let's get to the good one. I'll pace myself. I'll behave and discipline myself here. Level 4, the foolish. They are desperate for change and will do anything for that change. Now, these are the people that we really often want to work with because these are people that recognize that they have problems. They recognize their sin. They recognize their bad reactions. And they have this encounter with the Lord and say, okay, I need to do something about this. This is before they fully switch over into a full-blown toxic person. At this point, they're kind of they're teetering on the edge to decide, am I really going to go in that way and fully become toxic, or do I make the choice to start switching over into righteousness? You see, it's at this point where you need to identify and see, okay, are they really willing to put in all the effort to change? Do they really want it? Yes. These people you can take pretty far. I would say this. They, in their spiritual and in their emotional state, will go through a revolutionary change. These are the kind of people that will even progress as leaders and into fivefold offices. They will go into that high-level part. The others, they will probably be influences to their family, to their environment and community. But the foolish, if properly rehabilitated, can go all the way up into fulfilling in a leadership or a fivefold office position. That is the hope that they do have, that there is the chance of that. And finally, level 5, the naive. Now, the naive are very young. You might even see this as new converts. You'll see these as new people to the faith, or even as genuine children, because the seed of sin is planted in us from a very young age. And you need to be careful. Now, with the naive, they don't have an expression of their sin quite yet. They're still kind of figuring out and deciding how they want to react to the hurt and the experiences that they had in life. So they're still like, will I become bitter? Will I become angry? Will I put up the walls in defense? How am I going to react to these experiences and circumstances that I'm facing? The naive will begin to plot the course of who and what they're going to become. You see, there's not quite any toxicity in them yet, just the hint of it. But if it is not addressed, it will lead up and eventually can progress to level 1. But the good thing is, and the bad thing is about somebody at level 1, is that they're very easy to work with and to change. However, a naive person will take time because you have to train and coach them. So I would say that working with the naive takes a lot longer in the time that it takes to invest into them than with some of the others, but the results of working with somebody and properly rehabilitating somebody who is naive has a more lasting effect. So you will see longer lasting results in somebody like this. So there's a lot of hope, and in each one of these, there are a cure. There is a chance to work with them. But again, I'll discuss and cover that later on in the course. But guys, I hope that as I've been working through each one of these with you, that you're beginning to separate the reaction to the core of a toxic person. You see, we're looking and separating, and we're just dissecting it a little bit here. I'm wanting you to cut away and to pull apart a little bit the people that you claim as toxic and kind of separate your feelings, their feelings, and the true core of the hurt to see God's feelings for them. Once you begin to separate and begin to see in this different way, the cure and the solution is going to become very obvious to you. But as we begin and as we bring to a close our first study on toxic people and we get ready to go more in depth and begin looking at some solutions and practically applying cures to the toxins we see, I want you to meditate on this scripture that is my personal motto and what I firmly believe and has been my study for life. And it's in Proverbs 2, verses 2 to 6. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Cry out for insight. Ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasure. Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord. And you will gain knowledge of God. For the Lord grants wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Guys, be a student of life. Be a student of wisdom. Wisdom was birthed during the dawn of creation. I love how the word says that how wisdom was by his side when the world was formed. And it is like that. As we begin the study on toxic people, I want you to study life. I want you to study the toxic people around you, not in a creepy way, but in a way to seek understanding. As you encounter toxic people in your life, as you wrestle in understanding, I want you to ask questions. I want you to seek wisdom and to seek understanding. Don't expect that somebody like me is just going to give you all the answers. No, you need to hunger for truth and understanding. You need to be a student of life, because as you begin to question, as you begin to study life, as you begin to study the people around you who are toxic, you're going to begin to see patterns. You're going to gain understanding that only God the Father can give you. I've given you a lot of principles and a lot of insight into how to identify a toxic person, but only God can truly turn that knowledge I've given you into wisdom and true understanding. And it is for you to seek God the Father for the answers you seek, to seek God and to nag and to beg Him to give you wisdom and understanding. Because when you do, the answers will be revealed to you. As you study life and are a student to life, you will begin to see the answers, not for yourself, but for others around you. Now, with that being said, I want to go onto our required report submission. So, for today, I want you to pick a person as a case study for the rest of the course. So I'm not going to nag you about a bunch of different questions that I need you to answer, but I want you to help you pick a toxic person so that you can study them and base what I'm teaching you on as a live case scenario. So I want you to pick a toxic person in your life. So here it is. Toxic person, personal study. Question number 1. Name a toxic person in your life that is described by this message. Using everything I taught you about what a toxic person looks like, either the passive or the aggressive toxic person, pick somebody that you really feel embodies that kind of toxin. And I do encourage you to pick somebody who is a little bit closer, somebody that you do work with. You know, there's no point in picking, a cousin that lives years apart that you barely have any contact with. No, you need a live case study. You need to be able to analyze and to see and look at them and see how they're reacting. You need to be able to look at this person and begin to see deeper past their reaction, past what they're saying, and to properly study and look at them. I'll teach you how to fully study and how to work with them throughout this course, but take a moment to just pick somebody that you can work with, that you can seek wisdom and understanding for. Then mention, how are they toxic? In what way do you see them as toxic? So, where do you see them as being toxic, in what environment and why? Okay? Number 3, what is your relationship with this toxic person? Okay? So, are they close to you? Are they far from you? Are they somebody you're very emotionally connected with? Are they your disciple, your spouse? I sure hope it's not your spouse. That is really tough, but it happens. But if that is, we will still help you. There's still solutions, but I will say that is a tough case scenario. But what's your relationship with the toxic person that you are currently studying? Okay, next question. According to this teaching, what is their level of toxicity? 1 to 5. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best case scenario. So if you have your kid, more than likely, unless they have some demonic strongholds, they're more than likely going to lean towards a 5 to a 4. If you have somebody who's further along and somebody who's more set in their ways, it will be a little bit harder, and they probably will be higher up the scale. Please judge them accurately and not just by your personal experience and a one-case encounter. Again, look at the repeating trend throughout their whole life, not just one experience you had with them, not just one fight, but they're like this in every area of their life, okay? And then the final question, what is the cause of their toxic nature? So, in other words, let's dig a little bit deeper. If you can, I don't expect you to have the full answer. Again, this is just to get you studying. This is just to get you thinking. You will work through and you will find the full solutions later on through the course. But according to your perspective of what you see right now and how the Lord sees them, why are they toxic? What's the hurt? What's the trauma? Where did this toxicity stem from? Again, I don't expect you to have the full answer now, but these are some questions to start getting you thinking so that you can begin seeking out wisdom, so you can start getting understanding for this person and start working towards some solutions. Now, for those of you who are attending live for these lessons, you will be able to personally work with me, and I will work with you in some of these case studies to help you work on finding solutions for these people. You won't have to keep looking for these answers alone. I know sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're surrounded by toxic people, either as a minister or as a spiritual parent or as a mentor, and you can be a little like, I need some help to how to handle these people. I need to know where I can help them. Where do they fit in the toxicity scale? How do I help them? Where do I do? I'll be able to help personally coach and work with you in these sessions to answer your questions and to help give you more clarity on each topic as it's being taught. So if today's message brought up any questions, you'll be able to collaborate with me and I'll be able to help answer those questions and go a little bit deeper on some of the areas where you need some more depth. But I won't give you too many of the solutions because I still got a full course that we need to teach on. So I might leave some little tidbits for further on. But I do encourage you to attend these live sessions and to not wait just for the recordings, not only for the spiritual impartation that you will receive, but also for the opportunity to work and collaborate with other peers here in this environment. You know, when we are faced with toxic people, we grow stronger when we work through and overcome. And many of us have different antibodies in different environments. And when we sit in a community environment, we get to take the wealth of the cures that are inside of us and pass it around in the form of our experiences and in the wisdom that we've received. So if you're not even coming just to get coaching, come to receive a wealth of perspective in this safe community environment. We've all been hurt. We have all faced toxic people, but we are all working together to bring this cure to the world and church alike. And I'm very excited to work with every single one of you. I'm excited for us to help collaborate in bringing those cures, to bringing those solutions so that we can then take this and revolutionize the body of Christ. Guys, we're starting a movement, being the only solution in the world for people who have this toxic nature. Nowhere else can somebody go through inner healing and deal with those hurts than the church. We are the only solution. Well, God is the only solution for a toxic person. And we stand on the cutting edge of dealing with that. As this toxic move is on the rise, so will the church and the solutions that we have to bring.